Okay, hey there, you made it. It's your first AP Physics summer homework lesson. And this one's just going to be administrative stuff. We're not really going to start delving into actual material until lesson 2. So you see that the first assignment is to join our AP Physics Google Classroom, and I have a code for that, and I'll explain to you what that means in just a moment. And then you're going to schedule a pretend appointment with me for Monday, September 7th. That's Labor Day. I just want you to do that so that you know how to get help when you do need help. This is just going to be a pretend appointment, though. I am not going to be at school on Labor Day meeting with students. All right, so what you're on right now is my Google site, and that's what I've been using for the last few years, and it works pretty well. I've gotten it pretty much how I like it, but Google has come out with something called Google Classroom that looks like it has a lot of the same functionality as the Google Sites, but with a little bit more to it. It looks like it'll be a little bit easier to submit online homework assignments, and I can actually score them and submit the scores back to you online and things like that. So I thought that might be a good way to handle lab reports this year. So I thought we'd give it a try. Honestly, we're not going to use the Google Classroom, say, as often as my 9th grade class would, because you're going to have another site called WebAssign you're going to do your homework through, and we'll talk more about that in September. And that's the site that you're going to have to really access every single day and check on to see if you have homework. This will be a place, however, the Google Classroom, just like my Google site, would be the place where, I'll throw up a video that might, look like it's useful, that pertains to our chapter, or like I said, how you would submit your homework assignments, your written homework assignments, like your lab reports and things like that. Most of our everyday assignments, the problem solving, will be done through WebAssign, and that'll be a little bit different. Okay, so anyways, you have a code here, a class code. So what I suggest you do is copy that. And then you're going to open up Google Classroom. So you're going to go to classroom.google.com. Oops, let's see. Oh, I need to log in as a student. Let's see if I can do that without you seeing my password. Okay, so I'm going to log in as student.agneserwin.org. So you can see the sort of what it looks like from the student side of things as opposed to the teacher side of things. Now, student has already engaged with Google Classroom before, so it knows that it's a student account as opposed to a teacher account. You're probably going to have some sort of pop-up window that asks you to identify yourself as a teacher or as a student. And obviously, you're going to click student. And then you're going to join your first class. So you're going to click this plus button up here. It'll ask for a class code. Remember, that's right here, but I already copied that. So hopefully if I just hit paste, it will go right in, and then I can join. Drum roll. All right, and here we are. Now, by the time you get here, it might look a little bit different. I've gone through about 10 different themes in the last few days. I've only been setting this up for a few days now. I only even found out it existed for a few days ago. So it's still a work in progress. I'm sure some of the stuff I'm going to show you is going to change a little bit between now and next time, but it'll look more or less like this. So first off, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, there's a menu. And so if you click Home here, if other teachers use Google Classroom, it'll tile out your different classrooms here. And you can see what assignments you have coming up, stuff like that. There's a little menu here where you can unenroll, but please don't do that. That little folder icon in the corner opens up a Google Drive folder, and that's going to be the folder where it stores all of your submitted assignments, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think we'll get to know that better in the course of the year. So anyways, we can click here, go back to the page we were on. So what you're on right now is called the stream, and it's a little bit like a Facebook wall, or I don't know, I don't use Google+, but I imagine it looks a lot like Google+. So you have one announcement so far. Welcome, you made it. Go schedule an appointment. So let's talk about how to do that. Your stream is going to be where you see assignments and announcements. And you can also post announcements. So if you click here, you can write something, you can attach something, or you can put up a video or a helpful link. So if there's something that you find online that you think would be really useful to share with the class, then go ahead and do that. Obviously your name is connected to it, so do it responsibly. Watch the whole video before you post it. I've had some issues with that in the past with students. But I think it would be great. I'd love for you to be a part of the conversation. It would also be a great way to interact, ask questions about homework questions and things like that, because I do allow some homework help between students, and we'll talk about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Basically, you're allowed to give your classmates a nudge or to spot an error, but you're not allowed to do it for them, obviously. So this would be a great place to have those conversations so that they're very public. Some years people have used Facebook groups, but then I want to be a part of the Facebook group too, and for honor code purposes. And I think it might be better done here. So there's a classmates tab that I can't imagine is going to be terrifically useful for you, to be honest, although you can use that to email your classmates, but you probably know your classmates' email addresses. They're not very complicated here. And then lastly, there's the About tab, and the About tab is going to be where all of the sort of the general course materials are. So again, you see that same folder icon that we saw on the home page, and that is, again, where your submitted homework assignments are going to be, but it's not where the course materials are going to be. So I made a separate folder for that. So there's a class materials link, and that will take you to a Google Drive folder that should hopefully be shared with you. And it'll be organized by chapter. There's not much here just now because I'm in the process of bringing everything over from my site. Everything was sort of uploaded to my site. Now I have to put it all in a drive instead. And my goal for the summer is to switch everything over into Google Doc formats, which, we'll see. Summer resolutions are a bit like New Year's resolutions. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't, but we'll find out. So you can see there's a course documents folder here. That's where the syllabus, the lab contract, things like that are going to go. And then after that, I'm just going to organize it by chapters, okay? So let's see, going back to the About tab here. The next thing you see is physics with Vernier files. That we'll use in class during the year when we do labs that involve the lab pros, that involve the digital sensors. So you don't need to worry about that at all right now. The next link down is the textbook. So this is our main textbook, Physics for Scientists and Engineers by Sarway and Beichner. So there is a classroom set of this in 258. And if you don't like the idea of a virtual textbook, if you would rather have a hard copy of it, then let me know and I can accommodate that. But I think most people would rather have this because you can access it from more places and you don't have to lug it around or worry about where it is. This is the entire textbook. It's organized by chapter. We don't do this whole textbook in the course of a year. We are aiming towards the AP Mechanics exam, which means that we are going to study chapters 2 through 14 in the course of the year. We're just going to go from motion to gravity. There are actually 4 different AP Physics exams, so if you meet someone from another school and they're studying something very different, don't freak out. They're probably just taking a different Physics AP at the end of the year. There are a lot of different ones. Ours is called AP Physics C Mechanics, and the C stands for calculus, which is why you had to be in calculus to be in this class, because we will be using calculus, and we'll be learning a little bit over the summer, actually. So if you click on one of these chapters, it's just basically a PDF of the entire textbook. So this will be useful, I think, if you're having trouble with a particular topic, you can come in here and just read a different explanation. It'll often have solved example problems. Let me see if I can find one of those just now. So for example, just solving an example problem. A lot of times the problems that you have for homework will be eerily similar to one of these solved examples. So if you're having trouble with the homework, checking these out would be a good first step. If you scroll way down to the bottom, there is a chapter summary at some point here. Oh, they also talk about in chapter 2, since it's the first time you're really grappling with problem solving. It gives you sort of some problem solving steps, and we'll talk about that too, but I think it's worth looking at. And then on page 48 of this chapter, there's a chapter summary. It goes through the main points. There are some conceptual questions. Those are always good to check out. And then there are some problems. And as I said before, we're going to be doing our homework through WebAssign for the most part. So you won't have to really do these problems so much. Although actually, interestingly, the WebAssign problems, due to copyright reasons, are going to be variations on these problems from this particular textbook. When I log into WebAssign and start the class, I have to tell them which is our textbook, which one do we already have, a classroom set of, and then those are the only questions that we can view in WebAssign. So the questions that you see in WebAssign will be variations on these particular problems. The numbers might be different, but they'll be essentially the same problems. But it's also good to do extra problems if you feel you need a little extra work on a particular concept. And I also have another textbook that you can do the same thing for. And the answers to the odd-numbered problems for both books are in the backs of the textbooks. They aren't here, unfortunately, I don't believe. If we go down to the end of the chapter. Yeah, no, they're not here. But like I said, we do have copies of this textbook in 258, and you can just look up the answers there and see how you're doing. So that's your textbook. You don't have to worry about that too much, although chapters 1 and 2 might be useful for the lessons that you're going to be working on over the summer, because we are going to get into chapter 2, linear motion. Going back to that. There's a little bit from chapter 1 and a little bit from chapter 2 in your summer homework, so you might want to take a look at those 2 chapters as you're doing your work, especially if you hit a snag. So the next link down is making an appointment with me. So if you click on that, that will bring up your Google Calendar. And it'll look pretty blank because in the middle of the summer, I'm not going to have any open appointment slots. If I go back a few weeks, you can see this is what you'll see during the course of the year, something like this, organized by period, and it'll just be all of my free periods for that particular week. And then what you do is if you want to make an appointment, you can click on one of those blocks, and hopefully also if you keep your appointments in Google Calendars, it'll overlay your calendar with that, so that you can see when you're free. And I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the Google Calendar. If you don't use it, I highly recommend it. It keeps my life a little bit sane. So anyways, you'll be logging in the middle of the summer, so it'll look something like this. So you're gonna want to go up to the right arrow up here and keep clicking, and make your way to early September. Hopefully, it's not early September already. Speaking of which, as people start to make appointments, you can get a pretty good sense of where you are in terms of your peers and getting this homework done. So if you're the second person, because I'm going to make one right now. So if you're the second person, you're actually the first, really, then you're doing great. And if you see tons and tons of appointments already made, then you know that maybe you started this a little bit late. So if you click on one of the appointment slots, this is a pretend appointment, so it doesn't matter which slot you click on, you'll get a little pop-up window. And don't mess with that first part because that will be the time, it'll be second period or third period or whatever when you do it. And then the where, that doesn't matter too much because we'll have to be a little bit flexible as to where we meet. But the description is quite useful if you want to type in, I'm having trouble with number 4 on the homework, or I need help taking derivatives. It would be nice to have a little sense of what you're coming in for. And then you'll click Save. And 2 things will happen. That will go into your Google Calendar, and it will go into my Google Calendar, and I'll get an email too, so I'll know to expect you. And so let's see, you can view it in your own Google Calendar. Let's try that. So it should be there if we scroll forward. This is not my calendar. This is student@agneserwin.org's calendar, but let's see, it should be there now. Whoop, went too far. All right, there you go. So on Labor Day, you have a pretend appointment with Miss Carm now. And it'll also be in my calendar. I'm not going to pull up my calendar, but it's also there. And I get an email. So it's a great way to not have to go back and forth a million times about, when are you free? Are you free lunch one? No, I'm not free lunch one. Are you free fourth? No, I'm not. Let's do sixth. That sort of thing. It gets really old really fast and it takes a long time. This way you can see exactly when I'm free. It's pretty much the only periods I am free. So if you email me and say, are you free third? I say, I'll probably email back and either say, yes, please go onto the, calendar and choose it, or no, that's why it wasn't available on the calendar in the first place. That being said, if you look at the calendar and you don't see anything available in the next 2 days, give me an email. Maybe we can figure something out. Maybe I can put you in with somebody else who's having a similar issue, or maybe I can come in early or leave late, maybe. We'll see. But generally speaking, going to the appointment calendar should be your first impulse, and it's probably going to be the most effective way to meet with me. So that is pretty much all there is to it right now. Don't expect to see too much in the class materials folder. It's going to be a work in progress, but hopefully we'll get that up and running by September, or at least the parts that you're going to need will be up and running by September. If you want to post something to the stream, feel free. Might be fun. And that's all there is to it. So remember, your 2 assignments are to join the classroom and to schedule an appointment for Monday, September 7th. And then you can move on to lesson 2, which is all about measuring accuracy and precision. And I'll see you then.